Hello and welcome back to the Celebrity Almanac. In my very first video, my inaugural video, I indicated to you a number of celebrities that I had met over my 40-year career. And one of them at the top of the list was President Ronald Reagan. And when I met Ronald and Reagan and Nancy Reagan, he was not president yet, but he had been governor of California for 2 terms. I want to back up here a minute and explain to you how I followed Ronald Reagan, the Great Communicator, in a speech. And the way that happened was back in 1976, I was a volunteer on a local committee to elect S.I. Hayakawa to the Senate. John Tunney was the incumbent senator. And so I was on a local committee. I lived in Pasadena, California at the time. And one of the first things that we did was when S.I. Hayakawa came to Pasadena, we put on a fundraiser luncheon for him. And one of the things I was very proud of, one of my first creative thought processes was I looked up the Los Angeles Noodle Company, and they made fortune cookies. And so I got permission, and I contacted the LA Noodle Company. And at that luncheon, we had 2 fortune cookies at everybody's place for dessert. And when you opened up those fortune cookies, one of the messages was vote S.I. Hayakawa, and the other one was sayonara Tunney. And as you know, in Japanese, sayonara means goodbye. So that was a luncheon that we had. It was a very successful luncheon. And after S.I. Hayakawa, S stands for Sam, I understand, he defeated John Tunney, and he became the U.S. Senator, one of the U.S. Senators from California. And because I had been involved on a volunteer basis, and this was a volunteer position as well, I became the Los Angeles Speakers Bureau Director for Senator Hayakawa. And the job of the Speakers Bureau person, the director, was to review requests that came in for Senator Hayakawa to attend events. And one of the events that he was requested to attend, which he couldn't because his being in Washington prevented him from doing this, was from the Los Angeles Braille Institute. And so I looked at the letter, the invitation letter, and there was a chairperson for that event with a phone number, and I called. And I found out that there'd be about 300 people there, and the press would be there, and it was a dedication of a cafeteria for the Braille Institute. So I decided that I should take this assignment, and I went to the event. And at the time, it was 1976, and Ronald Reagan was making his first run for the presidency. And of course, he was defeated by the incumbent president, Gerald Ford. But 4 years later, he overwhelmingly won against the incumbent president, Jimmy Carter. And then 4 years after that, the Democrat nominee was Walter Mondale, and he defeated him soundly too. So he was a 2-term president. Anyway, I attended the event. I was sitting next to Mike Curb, the lieutenant governor of California at the time. I really didn't know if I was going to be required to talk to the audience on behalf of Senator Hayakawa. So that was left blank in my head as to what would happen. But anyway, during the program, The blind patients, members of the Braille Institute, part of the program was they did a square dance. So here you had men and women who were blind, completely blind, listening to a person calling out a square dance, and they did it magnificently. And so Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan were at the head table and watched this. And after that dance was completed, the blind members of the Braille Institute presented Nancy with a shawl that they had knitted. So that was quite touching as well. Anyway, the chairman of the event introduced Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan came up, and I think his total presentation, his speech was about 15 minutes. They mentioned before he came up that he had a number of functions he had to go to that day. So after his presentation, he and Nancy would have to be leaving. So as I remember, with his humor, he talked about over government spending and all of the conservative thought processes that he had, and interjected a number of humorous comments. And that went on for about 15 minutes. And after he finalized his presentation, he and Nancy walked down to the table, the head table, and took Nancy's hand, and they started to meander out of the ballroom. While they were moving and people were trying to shake their hands and say hello, all of a sudden the chairman of the event went to the microphone and said, "Now, next, I'd like to introduce Ed Lewis, the director of the Speakers Bureau for Senator Hayakawa." So you might imagine how I was shocked. I mean, I kind of knew maybe that would happen, and I always try to stay a little bit prepared. But nonetheless, I got up from where I was sitting and went up to the podium where the microphone was. And I quite purposely stalled just a little bit because there was still a certain amount of commotion as Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan started to exit out the back door. So I kind of waited until that happened and the room quieted down a little bit. So what I did is I gave condolences that Senator Hayakawa, with his schedule in Washington, D.C., unfortunately couldn't be here, but I'm happy to be here on his behalf. And I basically said, this has been a wonderful program. The new cafeteria will be a great asset for the Braille Institute. And I said that, I was very touched by the program, especially the square dance and the presentation of the Shaw to Nancy. And I always had in my pocket, my wallet, which I had taken out and put in my shirt pocket, I had a poem called "Don't Quit." And so I associate it with the poem "Don't Quit" with the folks that did the square dance and how they were persevering. And anyway, I tied it all in very neatly. So what I'd like to do is I'd actually read that poem for you. If you ever have a chance to do a presentation and it has anything to do with inspiration about people who have succeeded or persevered, this is a great poem to read at the end of the program. So it's entitled "Don't Quit." When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're traveling seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile, but you have to sigh, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is strange with its many twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns. And many a failure turns about when they might have won had they stuck it out. Don't give up, though the pace seems slow. Success is failure turned inside out. You may succeed with the very next blow. The silver tint of the clouds, no doubt, and you be near when it seems so far. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things seem worse that you mustn't quit. Now, I have to tell you that when I concluded that poem and thanked them for the invitation, I got quite an applause. And I'm a modest person, but I have to say it was probably as good as Ronald Reagan got. So I was pretty pleased with my performance. Now, this poem, Don't Quit, has an anonymous author, but every time I provide it to people, I say provided courtesy of Ed Lewis. But it is an anonymous poem that nobody knows who wrote. So that concludes one of my highlights. As I mentioned in past videos, the salute to famous TV doctors, and especially the salute to the MASH celebrities from the TV show were certainly highlights in my career. And following Ronald Reagan, the Great Communicator, in a speech was another one. So I hope that you will subscribe to our channel. We're moving forward with subscribers. And until next time, thank you for watching.